father went into the fields that day, the stranger shyly tagged along. Mr. Bailey gave him a pitchfork, and with a little practice, he learned to use it well. They worked hard. Occasionally, Mr. Bailey would have to stop and rest. But the stranger, he never tired. He didn't even sweat. That evening, Katie sat with the stranger, watching the setting sun. High above them, a flock of geese, in a perfect V formation, flew south on the trip that they made every fall.
I'll stop for just a second if you guys need to catch up on questions. You guys think, are you able to follow along okay? And still listen and answer questions? Okay.
The stranger could not take his eyes off the birds. He stared at them like a man who'd been hypnotized. 2 weeks passed, and the stranger still could not remember who he was. But the Baileys didn't mind. They liked having the stranger around. He had become one of the family. Day by day, he'd grown less timid, too. He seemed so happy to be around us, Mr. Bailey said to his wife. It's hard to believe he's a hermit. Another week passed. Farmer Bailey could not help noticing how peculiar the weather had been. Not long ago, it seemed that autumn was just around the corner. But now, it still felt like summer, as if the seasons couldn't change. The warm days made the pumpkins grow larger than ever. The leaves on the trees were as green as they'd been 3 weeks before. One day, the stranger climbed the highest hill on the Bailey farm. He looked to the north and saw a puzzling sight. The trees in the distance were bright red and orange, but the trees to the south, like those around the Baileys, were nothing but shades of green. They seemed so drab and ugly to the stranger. It would be much better, he thought, if all trees could be red and orange. The stranger's feelings grew stronger the next day. He couldn't look at the tree's green leaves without sensing that something was terribly wrong. The more he thought about it, the more upset he became, until finally he could think of nothing else. He ran to a tree and pulled off a leaf. He held it in a trembling hand and, without thinking, he blew on it with all his might. At dinner that evening, the stranger appeared dressed in his old leather clothes. By the tears in his eyes, the Baileys could tell that their friend had decided to leave. He hugged them all once, then dashed out the door. The Baileys hurried outside to wave goodbye, but the stranger had disappeared. The air had turned cold, and the leaves on the trees were no longer green. Every autumn since the stranger's visit, the same things happened at the Bailey farm. The trees that surround it stay green for a week after the trees to the north have turned. Then, overnight, they change their colors to the brightest of any tree around. And etched in frost on the farmhouse windows are words that say simply, "See you next fall." The end.
All right. Okay. So what do you think the man is? That's my biggest question. Who do you think he is?
They said it was, the people said he was something, like, he said he was.
Well, they said he was a hermit, right?
They said he must be a hermit.
Like, where did he come from?
Where did he come from? So does he have anything to do with the weather? Maybe?
Maybe, yes.
Okay. So before we get into that, let me hear what questions you guys have.
Mine was, why was the man looking at the trees? I mean, the birds.
Okay, why was the man looking at the birds? Okay, so here we go. I'm going to take this sticky, and we're going to put them in 2 categories. You guys are going to tell me, is it a thick question or is it a thin question? So if it's thick, it's going to go here. If it's thin, so your question, Devontae, tell me your question again.
I got a lot of them. It's 2 on 1 paper.
That's okay.
I said, why was the man looking at the birds?
Why was the man looking at the birds? Is it a thick or thin question?
Thick.
Why do you say thick?
Because it's something in your own words.
Okay. Oh, it's something in your own words, but also it's something that you can't find the answer in the book to, right? Okay, what was the other
I said,
question? Why were the trees different colors? Why do you think the trees were different colors? Is that a thick or thin question first?
Thick.
Why do you say thick? Can you all agree on the same, is it fact? Can you all agree on the same answer? Do you think that you guys would have the same answer to that question? So that would make it a thick question. Let me, Devontae, would you grab that orange tape on the edge of my desk? All right, Dominic, why can't he keep his eye off the birds? Ooh, what is that, a thick or a thin question? You guys are asking a lot of thick questions here.
I said, why did he pull off the leaf?
Why did he pull the leaf off the tree? What is that, thick or thin? Thick. One thing I'm noticing is a lot of you guys are asking questions about the weather. Okay, ask the other ones that you've got on that sheet.
Why did the stranger disappear?
Why did the stranger disappear? I had that question. I said, why is he leaving? Is that a thick or a thin question? There's only one answer, right? But we have to figure out what that answer is.
What was this? It said, why did the stranger disappear?
Why is he leaving? Do you think that's a thick or a thin question? Here's the thing. It can be thick because we could all have different answers, right? But the author meant for it to be one answer. There's only one right answer, right? So I would say that's going to be a thin question. We have to figure out, though, why. We have to use all the clues that we've been given and decide why did the stranger leave? Why did he have tears in his eyes? Oh, okay. Is that thick or thin? Thick.
I got two more.
Okay, any more questions?
Why did he pick up the bunny?
Or why did the bunny run to him? Why do you guys think that was? Where did he come from? Do we know? Does the book tell us where he came from? Okay.
Why did the first one?
And I'll show you the question. And tomorrow we'll finish up and we'll talk about the ending and the answer to the story. Who is he?
Why did he pick the rabbit up and move it?
Okay. I'll put that there. I had a question. My question was, does the man have something to do with the seasons changing?
I think he made like a ghost.
He made you like a ghost or something?
Or he made a rabbit.
Okay. I saw two of you ask how old was he? And someone said, Devontae said, how did the man not know how to button his shirt? Ah. Okay, so maybe. We don't know yet, right? So today I just wanted to get you guys started with thinking about what are thick and what are thin questions, right? Give me an example of what would be a thin question for that story. Who hit the man? Or who hit the stranger?
What was the man's name?
Mr. Beard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was his name?
Yeah.
Mr. Beard.
Oh, okay. What was the driver's name?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. What was the man's name?
Mr. Beard.
And we know that's a thin question because what? We can look right in the book and find the answer.
Why was the man not talking?
Did we find out? We didn't find that out. So what kind of question is that? Give me another example of one more thin question. So a thin question is a question we can find the answer in the book.
Why was he? No.
Did he say why he was outside? Like, why was he in the street?
Why was he listening?
We can say, did they give us an answer to that?
Why did he hit the? No.
We could say, did the wife and daughter feel comfortable with the man being there?
No, not really. Oh, yeah.
She may be saying like he doesn't. She maybe don't know how to use him.
What happened? A thin thin question. What happened after the stranger was hit?
He God took him home.
So what happened?
Why did the man take him home?
Because he didn't want to,
That's a good one. Why did he take him home? What was the reason he took him home?
because he was feeling hurt.
Because he was hurt, and we can find that directly in the book. All right, guys, our time is up. I've got to get you guys back to class, but we'll finish this up tomorrow. Just talking more about thick and thin. Right now, I wanted to introduce being able to determine what thick and thin questions are, and kind of get you guys in the mind frame of thinking, or I'm thinking of questions as you read, because that ultimately will help you with your reading comprehension. If you can ask questions about the story as you read, it can help you. So as we see, it says it monitors comprehension by comparing thick and thin questions. We did that today, and determine the difference between thick and thin questions. And so we'll work on that a little bit more tomorrow again too. Thick and thin questions, okay? Did you guys like the story? So tomorrow tomorrow we'll start answering these questions, and we'll determine what happened to the stranger. Where did he go? Who was he? Okay? All right. Thank you guys so much for your participation today.